Welcome to Radical Release, a healing series within There's No Way I Signed Up for This. This series was born in the in-between, the moments no one claps for, the silent breakdowns, the whispered prayers, the kind of healing that happens when no one's watching. This isn't about getting it all right. It's about learning to return to yourself with gentleness, with faith, and with enough grace to know that not having all the answers still means you're enough. Here, we talk about love after loss, peace after chaos, and how to hear God again, even when it's been quiet for a very long time. So take a breath. This is where we begin the radical release. Before we dive into today's episode, Where Was God When I Was Hurting?, I wanted to share why this series, Radical Release, mattered so deeply to me first. This wasn't created from a place of having it all figured out. It was actually born from a desert season. And when I say desert season, I tend to use different descriptions in the Bible where I see themes. And one theme I notice is that when people end up in the desert, they're usually by themselves and they're doing a lot of questioning, talking, conversation with God. And that's where I was at in a desert season. Carrying too much, breaking in silence, and still trying to love and lead and survive. Sometimes I found myself spiraling under the weight of emotions I didn't know how to process, things like guilt, grief, exhaustion, and sometimes questioning God. And still, somewhere in that dark space, lonely space, these three words were very, very prevalent. Forgive, focus, and realign. I realized I wasn't the only one who needed a framework that honored this mess of healing. So if you're here, welcome. This is sacred ground. I wanted to say that if you've ever silently asked yourself, God, where were you when everything fell apart? You're not alone. This question has echoed through every chapter of my healing, and I'm pretty sure some of yours as well. It's raw, it's honest, and it deserves space. Space to breathe, space to understand, and space to be present. This series, Radical Release, was never meant to give you all the answers, but it's created to walk beside you in the asking. So if your healing includes tears, confusion, anger, or numbness, which is my personal fave, this space holds true for you too. So today we're going to begin where many of us get stuck, in the ache of wondering, where was God when everything fell apart? When trauma hits, we lose, we break, or bleed emotionally, and sometimes physically. Many of us wonder if God abandoned us. Why didn't he stop it? Why didn't he protect me? Why did he let them stay? These questions are not signs of weakness. They're not signs of a weak faith. They are signs of intimacy. Asking where God was means you believed he should have been there. And guess what? He was. But maybe not in the way you expected. God's presence isn't always loud. Sometimes he's in the breath that got you through the panic attack, in the friend who texted you when you were unraveling, in the strength you didn't know you had to get up and face the next day. In Psalm 34:18, we're told, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." God doesn't always intervene in the way we want, but he is with us, near us, inside the resilience that kept us breathing when it made no sense to. Understand that stillness is not absence, and silence is not abandonment. Now, when you're going through all of the things, Sometimes that's just a jagged little pill, hard pill to swallow, right? When people come to you and make statements like, it's going to be okay, everything works out for your good, the teacher is always silent in the test, things like that. It's not helpful. Not helpful. During that moment, right? When you're crying, when you're confused, when you're angry, when you're hurt, sometimes it's the silence is what's needed, not someone having to fill the space with words. Again, your faith isn't weak if you're asking, where are you? Because if your faith was weak or wasn't there at all, why would you ask, right? So again, this is the opportunity to understand that even in the best of intentions, when people do try to support you with saying things or suggesting things to do, being in stillness sometimes is all that's needed. A part of radical release is also allowing yourself to grieve. Not just what happened, but also what didn't happen. And that's kind of a hard thing to, process, right? Cognitive dissonance. I'm grieving what happened. That's something very tangible, right? You can identify what happened to you when it happened. And the thing with trauma, it kind of sticks. Every traumatic event that I've experienced, starting back from the age of 7, I'm able to describe in clarity. It just sticks in the brain differently. So yeah, if someone was able to say, what are you grieving? I could say, this occurred to me at this time. Now, I will say trauma does do weird things in the brain and might not be as linear and everything else. But as time goes on and it settles in, it starts to wire together. And that's another thing with trauma. It wires together. So one traumatic event could wire with another one. Or if you go to a funeral for somebody, it could highlight or spark up the trauma you experienced with another grief experience, because trauma wires together. So we're able to identify that, right? What happened. But we also have to grieve what didn't happen. What do I mean? The apology you never got. Let it go. The protection you needed. The rescue you prayed for that never came. You have to grieve those too. Healing begins when you reclaim the truth that you were never alone. God doesn't cause your pain, but He's deeply invested in your healing. We all know we have been given free will, and people choose to do with that as they will. Some people choose to do great things, and some people choose to do horrible ones. But God is not causing them to do that. And even though that's a hard thing to sit in when we need somebody to blame, and there's sometimes when you don't have somebody to blame, we want to make sure we understand that even though God was not the one who caused the pain, He's deeply invested in your healing from it. So, we're not here to compare pains. We're not here to compare different trauma stories, because everybody's trauma is different. You can have two people experience the same event and have different outcomes. There's no trauma hierarchy here. So we're not here to measure wounds. We're here to mend them. And sometimes in these conversations, people feel silenced because they hear other stories and say, well, wow, that didn't really happen to me. So they start minimizing their experience. That's not where we heal. You should never minimize your experience, because your experience is your experience. However that trauma happened, that belongs to you. So comparing your trauma to somebody else's is actually counterproductive, right? Because now you don't feel, well, if that didn't happen to me at that level, then I really shouldn't be complaining. If you're hurting and it's preventing you from moving forward, then you absolutely are in the right space, in the right place. One thing to note about trauma, it carries through bloodlines as well. So you might be experiencing outcomes from traumas you actually never experienced firsthand. What do I mean by that? Well, our ancestors live in our DNA. So within historical trauma, there are things that occur within our DNA, mutations, and it's passed down even before birth. So there are many of us who were born with a trauma story that we never lived through. That also has impacts on us subconsciously on why things occur. And again, you could ask, where was God in that? But it all goes back to not focusing on just questioning those questions. Now it's more having an intimate conversation on what steps do I need to do to get beyond where this hurt is. It's not a forgetting about it. It's a way to live beyond it. And that's one of the most important pieces of healing is the forgiveness and the realignment. So here are some takeaways from this episode I want you all to consider. Questioning God's presence doesn't mean you lack faith. It means your faith is alive. Because if it wasn't, who would you question? Right? If you didn't have faith, why would you even attempt that dialogue? Also note that God was there in every breath, in every tear, every act of survival. And you're not weak for wondering where he was. You're brave for looking for him. And healing starts by making space for this divine honesty. So at the end of each episode, I will be doing little journaling prompts or reflection exercises to kind of put this in a more tangible, actionable, seeable response. So when you find a quiet moment today, close your eyes or not, that's completely up to you, and ask yourself, where did I feel completely alone? Then ask yourself, where might God have been hidden in the details, holding the pieces that I couldn't? You're going to journal, what about my story felt like abandonment? And what small signs of presence or protection do I now see in hindsight? I like to use the phrase God or angel touches, and these are just little reminders. So what these are, and I want you to look through for these as well. And that's kind of what this reflection is. Looking for angel touches. So when you might be going through an extremely stressful time in your life, something has occurred out of your control, literally all hell is breaking loose. But somebody, a complete stranger on the street, comes, walks past you and gives you a compliment out of nowhere. Or someone sends you an amazingly supportive email out of nowhere. Or someone pays for your meal at the drive-thru out of nowhere. You hear a song that speaks to your situation perfectly and you feel better after listening to it. These are what I call angel touches or God touches. Just a reminder that you're not alone, And even though the experience you're going through at the moment is uncomfortable, sometimes downright painful, you're not walking it by yourself. So look for angel touches, look for God reminders, and look back into your stories where you felt alone to see if now you can identify where those divine interactions happened. I always say God sends his angels where they're needed. And I can guarantee, I'm going to say 99.9% can guarantee that they were sent to you as well. Another reflection as you're doing this journaling is that in your time with God, I may not have understood your silence, but I trust that you never left. Reveal the places you were holding me, even when I couldn't see it. And then watch what happens. So, as we come to the end of our first episode in Radical Release, I'm hoping that reflection exercise gets the conversation started. I will also be sharing in the pod notes a link to a 7-day devotional that can help with the steps as we make this journey together. So, thank you for showing up. Your future self will be very happy that you did. And I look forward to connecting with you in our next episode. Take care.